FY21 has been a good year for India's exports, with the country moving beyond the $300 billion range after many years. But while there has been positive momentum on this front, the growth in exports has been threatened by container shortages and soaring freight rates in the aftermath of the pandemic. India, as a $5 trillion economy by 2025, cannot be a reality without exports being at the core of this ambition. What can Budget 2022 factor in to ease some of the exporter woes and offer a leg up to this sector? To discuss more, we are joined by Ajay Sahai, DG and CEO, Federation of Indian Export Organizations, Mahavir Pratap Sharma, past chairman, Carpet Export Promotion Council, and Pushkar Mukhevar, CEO and co-founder, Drip Capital. Thank you for joining in and welcome to this panel discussion. Ajay, if I can first come to you, I wanted to ask, India is on course to achieve $400 billion in exports in FY21. However, it was an unusual year with factors such as enhanced liquidity, pent up demand, and rise in commodity prices also contributing to such numbers. Can we sustain the momentum in the next fiscal?
Neha, you have rightly said that the pent-up of demand, the inflationary pressure, the various stimulus given by different countries all have propelled the growth in the global trade. And as you know, the global trade in 2021 went up by around 23%, which is definitely an extraordinary figure. So that's a common factor which has driven the exports of all economies across the globe, and India is not an exception. And we have definitely benefited by these factors. As you told us that I think the crucial issue is that whether we can continue to maintain the momentum in the next year also and build on $400 billion, which we are likely to achieve this year. So my answer is definitely yes. And for that, I think the order booking position is the most encouraging factor. We had our board meeting yesterday, and chairman of across sectors have said that they have extremely good order booking position for the next financial year also. Secondly, in the next financial year, will be much more supported by the PLI scheme. PLI scheme has just been rolled out for many sectors. In the mobile sector, it started showing some result in respect of exports. We will building on that, and as we have additional incremental production coming into the country, some of that will be channelized into exports. We will also have some of the mega scheme like mega food park, mega textile park, which will be in place in the next financial year, and that will definitely help the exports. One of the common factor which is helping India's export both in 21, 22, and which will continue is the fact that countries are looking for China plus one, and India is definitely on the radar of the countries. Of course, there are few challenges which we'll definitely discussing. Liquidity is one of them, logistics is another challenge, which we have to see what best can be done so that the growth momentum can be maintained. And additionally, I think the industry also has to look into the expansion of capacity if we want to replace China as another major supplier in the global trade. You have rightly said that if we are endeavoring towards becoming 5 trillion economy, exports have to play a pivotal role because historically speaking, all those years in which India clocked 8% GDP growth were the year where exports also showed 15 to 20% growth, and converse was equally true. So when we are moving towards 5 trillion economy, I'm pretty sure export will be playing a predominant role into that.
Right. And Mahavir, if I now ask you about global demand, uh, how really is it in the face of a new strain of COVID? And if you had to do a bit of crystal ball gazing, how do you think this year will be in terms of exports from India?
So I personally feel it will not be any different from what this year was. If you remember our conversation 2 years ago when COVID hit, I'd said that people will transform or transit from expensive and high-end products to mid and low-end products. And at least that has been the case across sectors in textile for sure. And I think that trend will continue. I think the India factor in comparison to China in the sector will continue to grow. I don't see anything different happening. Omicron is just blip, in my opinion, a 2-month life cycle, as evident from South Africa. I think US and Europe will come out of it by the end of the month, early February, India probably by mid to end of February. So I don't personally, crystal ball glazing, don't see much of an impact. I think medium to low end category of products will continue to grow, which is driving the sector anyways. And I think India will be a strong contender when it comes to exports in all kinds of textiles, handicrafts, handmade products.
And coming to credit, the credit part, Pushkar, access to credit remains one of the biggest problems for MSME exporters. Can the government do something to help these exporters?
Sure, sure. So Neha, as you pointed out, I mean, access to credit continues to remain a problem. And I do believe that the government can certainly do certain things which can help the MSME exporters. So one is really around just incentivizing MSME lending or MSME credit. I think historically, when we look at banks, while government has launched schemes to sort of promote credit access for MSMEs, when it comes to implementing these credit schemes, they ultimately, the banks and most of the traditional institutions are responsible for that. And historically, they have not sort of focused on this segment with also a predetermined notion that this is inherently a risky segment, right? And I think one trend which we're obviously observing in India is the rise of fintech MSME credit players, a number of non-traditional lenders emerging. And I think the government can do more to promote these non-traditional institutions, which can certainly help fill some of the credit gap which exists in this sector. The second, I think, area is, there's been recently an amendment to the Factoring Regulation Act, which provides for non-traditional institutions or non-traditional lenders to also provide invoice discounting for MSMEs. And again, I think this will, just implementing this amendment properly would enable a lot more players to participate in this space, and also would hence result in potentially increasing supply of funds to MSMEs, potentially also reducing the cost of capital for these MSMEs. And the third thing, I guess, and something which we also observe as we operate in the market, is just financial literacy. I think this is a sector which is where lack of knowledge is a huge problem. Most of the MSMEs are not aware of alternative forms of credit which may be available to them. And I guess the government can continue doing more work on just creating more awareness, working with industry participants to really sort of impart that knowledge, which will help the MSMEs avail some of these alternative forms of financing to sort of solve some of the credit problems which exist. Yeah.
Okay. And if I can come back to you, Ajay, and again, a question from, from the government's perspective. India has some new but very significant policies like RoDTEP and a new FTA. From what you have seen or know, are these ideal, or can the government make some changes?
In fact, you have talked about two sets of the strategy. One is the strategy which is aiming at zero rating of India's export, and for which the government has brought the RoDTEP scheme for all the sectors, and for apparel and metals, they have a CTL scheme. The aim of these schemes is to provide for refund of all taxes and duties which are not being rebated under the existing mechanism, and also to take into account the embedded impact of the taxes. To that extent, I think these schemes are extremely supportive for the export sector. These are the schemes which are going to stay as they fit into the discipline of the WTO agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures. And therefore, I think we should look into the scheme from long-term perspective. Some of the shortcoming of the scheme may be exclusion of roughly 14 products in the way chapters from the scheme. You know that the iron and steel, article of iron and steel, chemical, pharma, they are excluded from the scheme. We know that government has financial constraint to exclude the sector, but if it is zero rating scheme, I think all the sectors who suffer from the duties and taxes, they should be covered under this scheme. And when we are looking into these sectors, we are looking more at the top line, the bottom line of these sectors is also under very much stress. So if the government expand the RODTEP scheme to bring all the sectors, look into the rates also, because there is a wide mismatch between what the rate industry expected and what has been notified. So if the industry can provide comprehensive and more accurate data to the government, which can help to again look into the rate, that will help is. So far, this strategy of the free trade agreements are concerned, it's extremely good so far for export sectors are concerned. In many of the market, we are losing to our competitors who are either the least developed countries or they have better market access. So if we are looking into now FTA from a different angle, we are focusing more on those countries or regions which are important from our export perspective. So at this point of time, we are looking into forming our FTA with UK, US, UK, UAE, and Australia. I'm pretty sure either the early harvest or the complete agreement will be rolled out in 2022. We are also looking into expanding our FTA with other countries of the Middle East, including the entire GCC. Canada is also on the card. We are looking into the South African Customs Union and the European Union. So I think there has been a paradigm shift in the government strategy for the FTA, focusing more on our export market. And that's why we feel that once the FTA with the major economies like UK, EU will be there, it will help all the sectors export, particularly our traditional sectors of export, and still predominant share of our exports goes to European and UK market. So these are extremely good strategy. And as we move along, dealing with very much subject to flexibility to address the issues as and when they arrive into the FTAs.
Right, right. And Mahavir, taking off from what Ajay mentioned, India needs to be compliant with the WTO norms and at the same time provide the right incentives to exporters. So with schemes like RODTEP, do you think we have what it takes to spur exports?
I mean, the scheme of RODTEP was long overdue. It was in the works for the last 3 years, and finally it did come, and we welcome that. As Ajay rightfully said, not only many sectors are missing, but also there's a mismatch between what the industry expected and was delivered. I'll give you a simple example. Caps on many HSN codes defies logic. A hand knotted carpet, for example, 570101 can be 100 rupees a square feet, could be at 2,000 or 3,000 rupees a square feet, depending on the knot count per inch. So have a cap, and where you're getting only like 2 rupees and 80 paisa for a 3,000 rupee rug is worthless. It absolutely does not make sense. So I don't see any logic in why there should be a cap on a RODTEP. You know, if the time taken is more, value is more. If the material is more expensive, value is more. If more services from electricity, diesel, etc., raw materials are used, the value is more. So obviously there should be no cap. I don't understand the reason behind a cap. So while we are submitting and resubmitting, and many other sectors will be submitting, I think looking at the rate of RODTEP, looking at the reason behind the reason behind a cap should not be an overall budget being divided into the total number of units that were exported the years before. It should have logical reasoning, because you are actually returning what we have paid, and you are complying with the WTO norms, and you can give back to your exporters and who have to compete with other countries. So I personally feel the government will have to turn around and support and strengthen the RODTEP and make it more inclusive rather than top down.
Right, okay. And Pushkar, FTAs, when we talk about FTAs, the ones that India has and the ones we do not are seen as a huge impediment for exports. What are your views on this, and how can we ensure that FTAs that we are currently negotiating safeguards our interest and enhances our competitive strength?
Sure. So I think, as Dr. Ajay pointed out, I think FTAs are beneficial, have been beneficial for exports, for our exporters. And I think historically, I think India has had more FTAs with Asian countries, South Korea, Japan, and so on and so forth. And I think, of course, some of these agreements have definitely helped increase India's exports with these countries. But there's also a feeling that some of our partners have benefited more. And this is definitely sort of showing up in the deficit with some of these countries increasing over time, right? And the issues where I guess we've struggled have been really around sort of high cost of compliance, strict sort of country of origin norms, sometimes even limited understanding and knowledge of these FTAs within the broader exporter community. I think India, of course, more recently has been focused on sort of trying to ink more FTAs with their core trading partners, including EU, UK, Australia, UAE. Some of these are under negotiation. I think as we work with some of these developed nations to kind of finalize the FTAs, this is going to bring up even more complex issues, right? I mean, European Union, the FTAs would involve issues like sustainable trade practices, clean energy sort of mandates, data protection requirements in some cases. And I think there is a requirement that sort of the government and the authorities need to probably understand the ground realities as they negotiate these FTAs, because I think ultimately, like, sort of the benefit would come if our exporters can comply with the norms within those FTAs. So there is sort of needs to be a better understanding of the ground level realities as we negotiate these FTAs, and also potentially opportunities for us to optimize existing FTAs which are already in place. So that's what I would think.
Right, and if I can come back to you, Ajay, on about the container crunch. The COVID-19 pandemic led to an acute container crunch, which of course played out with more wait time at ports and shipment delays. Freight rates have again increased in January, adding to exporter woes. What should India's strategy be to counter such an issue?
Yeah, you rightly said that we have suffered a loss because of the container shortage, and one of the factor was that just after the COVID, the India's import has gone down substantially. But if you are looking into our imports figure, they are definitely growing by 50% plus, and in fact, in first 9 months, our trade deficit has increased to $142 billion, as a lot of imports are happening. Secondly, the transshipment port in Asia, at least they have back to the normalcy, though of course challenges continues in the Pacific region, and to some extent the container availability has increased. But the short point which I am making is that since India is also promoting coastal shipping, and we want that coastal shipping should get a decent percentage in the total transportation, we have to start manufacturing container in our own country. We can't be dependent on container manufacturing, which is dominated by China. The good thing is the government has looked into at some of the places, particularly the Bhavnagar, for container manufacturing. A lot of foreign companies have shown interest into that. One of the key reasons why container manufacturing has not started in a big way is the fact that we required a special variety of steel, which is not available. And I think there we lose our competitive advantage. That's why we have suggested to the government that let us look into some kind of PLI scheme where you incentivize the companies to produce containers into countries so that these containers are used both for the domestic shipping as well as for the overseas shipping. An extremely important point for us is to have an Indian shipping line of global repute. Our estimate says that this year India will be spending close to $100 billion as transport service charge only. And as we move towards a goal of $1 trillion merchandise export by 27-28, by that time, I think imports will also swell to $1 trillion or more. Our outwards transport services charges may exceed $150 billion. If we have an Indian shipping line of a global repute, which gets only 25% of the business, we can save $37 to $40 billion on an annual basis. And that's a huge saving for the country. Secondly, once you have your own shipping line of global repute, you are not at the sole mercy of the foreign company, which is the case as of now, or for any reason they are putting some kind of charges. And I think very soon the words will fall short of which they going to levy additional charges on that. So a long-term roadmap for us should be to encourage to have an Indian shipping line of global repute. I know that once you are registering the ship in India, there are taxes which are levied on that. So that needs to be nullified. The good thing is that most Ministry of Shipping and Ministry of Commerce are looking at this possibility. So I think when we are looking toward medium-term export, we have to look into these kinds of logistics challenges, which needs to be addressed when we are looking into such goal of $1 trillion exports.
Mahavir, if you had to list your top 3 pain points, what would that be?
So, I mean, obviously, we've discussed RoDTEP, the cap and RoDTEP. We've discussed the container and the logistics issue that needs to be looked at. I think the other important issue is the rate of interest and government policy long term. I think interest subvention, it needs to be going on for furthermore. It should be long term. It cannot be 3 months or 6 months at a time. I think we should be competing. We are competing with the world, and every time that we have to go and wait for subventions or even the schemes where we get our other incentives back should be long term. I think the government has been doing short term extensions, which does not help, whether it's the licenses, whether it's the interest subvention. I think exporters need to compete with the world on interest rates, and I think that would be my third pain point as we go forward. Also, I think the PLI scheme should be linked somewhere to taxation, both direct and indirect. That will also encourage many industries and many people to start to go forward. But it is a step in the right direction, and I think I would make it better as we go along, because that will help India reach the goal of the $5 trillion economy.
And if I can come to you now, Pushkar, it has been almost 2 years since the pandemic started. What are the lessons for India's exporting community, and where do we go from here?
So I would say that, the first lesson is really around building resilience, right? I mean, the pandemic has caused all kinds of issues, right? There's been a supply chain crisis. There's been volatility in commodity markets. Even the maritime industry, which has been stable now, is impacted because of freight charge. I mean, there's been like a lot of increase in freight charges and sort of a lot of uncertainty around the entire ecosystem. And I think companies which have had sort of strong business models, good business practices, are the ones who have kind of survived the pandemic much better than others. The second thing, I guess, tied to this point is really to be able to be nimble and capitalize on changing trade and demand patterns. I think obviously we've spoken about this. There is an increasing focus of many companies to have a China plus one strategy, and this is a great opportunity for Indian exporters to capitalize on. But again, I think it comes down to how nimble they are and how well positioned they are to be able to capitalize on these changing opportunities or this dynamic market patterns. The third one is really around sort of automation. I think industries which were impacted most during the pandemic were, of course, which were labor intensive, where there was a requirement for human force. So focusing on automation, being able to operate remotely, are just some things which have impacted not just exporters, but for that matter, every business operating in the world, right? And I would say the last one is really sort of building a brand around some specialty Indian products, because see, at the end of the day, I think pandemic or no pandemic, I think when we are known in the world for quality, are recognized for in certain product categories, the demand for those products is there to stay. I think when we compete in commoditized industries, those are the ones which get impacted the most, right? And I think this is just sort of highlighted the need for us to actually which specialize in certain products which are known globally. So
and I have a common question for all of you. What are your expectations from the budget for the export sector? And I'll start with Ajay.
In fact, I think budget should look into providing competitiveness to India's exports on medium-term basis. And one of the suggestions which we are pursuing is to provide 200% tax deduction on overseas marketing. We all know that India's MSMEs have the best of the product, but their showcasing is extremely poor. They hardly have the resources to showcase in the international market. So many countries in the world, including Singapore, provide such kind of support to their MSME. And if Government of India can also provide 200% tax deduction, so every dollar is spent by MSMEs on overseas marketing, $2 can be allowed as a tax deduction that will encourage MSME. The second issue we would like to express our solidarity also with the other stakeholder is that we need to spend a lot on the logistics to improve the infrastructure across sector. Government has spent a lot and they are spending it, because if we are able to bring out the logistics cost, which definitely is coming down from, let us say, 14% to around 11% or so, it will be a huge gain to Indian economy and Indian exports. The third thing would be that we would look into providing aggressive branding, and our concept of branding will be threefold. Country needs to be projected as a brand, and that's the responsibility of the government. At the product level, I think different association, export promotion council should be mandated to promote a product, and then individual branding should be left to the company. So we need to have a three-tier strategy to promote our brands globally. And I am pretty sure this is going to reap a rich dividend in next 5 to 7 years.
Mahavir.
Just want to add, so everything I agree with whatever he said. Just want to add, I think going forward, sustainability is going to be a key factor. Companies and organizations or products that are SDG compliant, which will take Prime Minister's vision to make India carbon neutral, I think they should be incentivized in some sort of way, like marketing was suggested for every dollar that they spend, or carbon neutral approach that they have. And I think that is where natural fibers, environment issues, social impact, equal opportunities to different sectors of the society, including urban, rural, tribal areas. I think all those incentives should be inbuilt in the budget, because that will take India together collectively, and the micro and the small level organizations or products will service better. I think that should be added to what he said.
Pushkar.
Yeah. So again, I think just to add to what Dr. Ajay and Mr. Mahavir pointed out, I think one more sort of expectation beyond what they already highlighted would be really around sort of making India self-reliant on raw materials. I think today almost 80% of raw materials in certain industries, which are major export industries like pharma, for example, they come from China. And until I would say that we don't make these intermediaries or these kinds of products in India, or promote production of these kinds of products in India, we cannot be a strong competition to China or be the first choice sort of in a China plus one strategy, right? Second area, which I think beyond the ones which have already been highlighted by the panelists, would be credit. I think we already spoke about that MSME credit continues to be a challenge, and whatever the government can do as part of this budget to increase liquidity for this sector and really help exporters would be obviously a beneficial thing. So
hopefully the budget will address all of these aspects. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us these insights today. Thanks a lot, and let's hope for the best in the upcoming budget.